All right, now that the recording has started, welcome everyone. My name is Erin Narcid. I will be your MobyMax presenter today. Just because I have a few screens up, I wanted to show my face, say hi, and then I'm actually going to turn off my video just so we can focus on the accounts and the screen sharing. But if you do have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat box. And then Elizabeth or Katie, if you want to shout those out from time to time, I'm happy to answer as we go along. There will also be a time for question and answer at the end. So we'll get started with that. Need my little, going to turn off my video, get the screen situated. And if for whatever reason you can't see the screen, just let me know, but it should be shared. So like I said, my name is Erin. I am your success expert along with Stacy Bradley. She's currently out of town, so I'm hosting our webinar, but you can reach out to either one of us. You should have probably received emails from her throughout last year. But that is my direct phone number and email if you do want to write that down, just so that you have both of those contacts. But your success expert is really there to be your personal concierge for your school. So answer any questions, anything that you need help with. So please feel free to reach out. We can do phone calls, emails, or set up other Zoom or Google Meet meetings. Our objective today is I will be able to identify and navigate to key MobyMax features in order to optimize time. So we have 6 different parts to our agenda. We'll first talk about what is MobyMax, just give a brief overview. We'll take a tour of the teacher and the student accounts, just again, to kind of see the different features in those. We'll look at how do student licenses work, how to assign those licenses, looking at some of those data and reports, and then we'll have time for questions and answers at the end. Before I get started with our first portion, I just want to quickly look. Everyone saying hi. Thank you, thank you. Awesome. So what is MobyMax? MobyMax is a full K through 8 state standards aligned online curriculum. So Common Core should be active at the beginning of July, and I apologize. We had discussed that, and then this morning we changed that. So I have 2 other slides with our deadline dates later on in the presentation. So ignore that date for now. Common Core standards are coming, but that's actually going to be August 1st instead of July. But they will be based on the Common Core standards. Right now you have Minnesota state standards, and we are going to have that shift later on in the summer. MobyMax has automatic diagnostic testing, automatic skill assignments and remediation, and automatic grading. You'll notice too, it says K through 8. So our curriculum is just K through 8, but you can select a grade level all the way up to grade 12. So just know that if you select 8 through 12, students will start with a placement test that begins in 7th grade with an easy question. So just kind of be aware of that as you are registering students or as you see the students on your roster, their information. The placement test and some of those different modules starts based on the grade level that's selected. So while we are K through 8 standards, if this grade level is selected further than that, they'll just start with an easy 7th grade question and it will adapt from there. MobyMax is designed to find and fix learning gaps. So let Moby do the work for you. We can kind of be your virtual assistant. There are 2 different ways of using MobyMax, more of an automatic route and a manual. So everything in Moby is automatic as long as your students know how to sign in and get started on the modules. Everything will be recorded for you. Again, we have automatic diagnostic testing, grading, remediation. If you would like to be in the driver's seat, though, we do have a few manual options, and you can assign some different assessments, skills, things like that. 99.9% of Moby is customizable, which you can change in the settings, either for everyone on your roster or for individual students. So now we're going to take a tour of teacher and student accounts and kind of look at some of those features. But before I move on, are there any questions just on what Moby is or that initial section of the presentation? Thank you, Elizabeth, for that clarification there. So we'll take a look at setting up your MobyMax classroom. In the teacher account, we will see some of those different account features, where to find the standards and curriculum, how to register different students, how to find and reset learner passwords. how to set up young student login if that's something you're interested in, the sharing versus transferring of learners, and then group and shared classes. So to start, I'm going to go to the teacher side of it. If you are an administrator and you have both sides of the account, the school admin side lets you have your administrator rights, whereas when you click on the teachers button, that will just bring you to the teacher side of your account. If you just have a teacher account, this is what it will look like when you sign in. We have our quick access section in the top left box where the student summary is, assignments, charts and graphs, custom reports. So some really helpful information there, as well as some different widgets on that homepage. So it really shows you some different statistics as the students are working in real time, if they're logged on, logged off, things like that. Moving over to the curriculum tab, here's all the different curriculum modules within Moby. They're all housed on this page. You can see them all at once, or you can filter on the left-hand side. So if you want to see which ones you can assign skills in, or which ones you can assign a placement test in, you can filter and then it will bring you to those modules. We have our tools tab, so that's where our reporting section is, our manage section, and then last but not least, our help tab. So if you ever have a question, you can just type in a keyword like IEP if you forget how to assign an IEP goal. Most links have a short 2 to 3 minute video as well as step-by-step instructions. All right, so now we are going to take a look at where to find those standards and the curriculum. So we're going to go to that curriculum section, and then we're going to click on one of the modules. You can do this for all of the modules, and then on the last tab, it will say curriculum, especially for those core subjects. But once you select curriculum, you will see all of the different grade levels. On kind of the upper right-hand corner, you can select standards, and then it will show that you guys are still with the Minnesota standards. However, again, that is going to be switching on August 1st to Common Core to better align with your program. But you can toggle down each of the different grade levels and each of the different domains, and then again, each of those different skills. And you can click on any of those and see the problem sets. So if you ever want to know what your students are working on, or what types of questions are being asked, or what kind of problems they're getting, you can always find the whole curriculum under this tab. And again, all of the standards, all of the grade levels. I did mention that 99.9% of Moby is customizable. So if you do want to change any of those settings, that would be under the Tools tab. You can go under Settings, which is the little gear icon, and then the default settings for all students will apply to all students on your roster, but you can also do that on an individual setting as well. So you can change lots of different settings within each module, like if the problems are read aloud to the students, fact fluency, you can change the highest fact level. So different things like that. You can also hide modules. I would recommend though, if you're sharing students, to just leave all modules unhidden. That way students have access to them all. But those are some different ways that you can customize Moby for your students. And again, that would just be under Tools and then Settings. All right, going back, we're going to now look at how to register students, how to look at their login information, young student sign in, and then kind of looking at those groups and shared classes. So all of that is going to be housed under our Tools tab again, and then under the Manage Student Roster. So when I click on that backpack, I will see all of the student information. So I have username, password, their grade level, their ID, if they're shared with any other teachers. I can click on their name and get some additional information like when they last logged in. And I can also go to their individual settings up at the top. How your students sign in, you can print login cards for them if you would like, if that's something that you're able to do and pass out. If not, all of their information is on this page. So you can copy over their username, their password, and then on the how your students sign in, this URL is what your students will click on. Sometimes people have it bookmarked on their classroom webpage or just send that out, or it will be on those login cards if you do print those out. but this URL is a direct link to your school. So students will click on that or go to that URL and then just type in their username password. If they just go straight to the MobyMax webpage, they can type in this code and then they'll type in their username password. For learners that would like to click on a picture password and their name instead of typing in their information, you can set up Young Student Sign In. And what that does is for the students on your roster, they will get brought to a page, they'll click on their name, and then they'll click on their two picture passwords, and then have access to their account. So we do recommend this for students at the kindergarten, first grade level, just because, um, if students guess the pictures correctly, they could potentially get into another account, but that is, again, for students at the kindergarten, first grade level, but that is an option. You can also get to that under Manage Roster. So if you go to Manage Roster and then Manage Young Student Sign-In, that is how you can enable that option to click on their name and then click on two pictures as the password. Otherwise, they will just type in their username and password. If you need to reset
Erin,
that, yeah, go ahead.
sorry to interrupt. Would you be able to model one more time from the teacher home screen how to get to your roster and how your students sign in, and also zoom in so it's a little bit larger?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for telling me that because I never know is that okay or one more Zoom?
Maybe one more?
Okay. Does that look good?
Yeah, that looks good.
Okay, perfect. So from the home screen, you're going to click on the Tools tab and then click on Manage Student Roster. So it's that first backpack icon under Manage. And then here's where all of the student information will be. So the username, the password, all of their login information. If you would like the unique school URL, you would click on how your students sign in. And then this is the URL that takes them directly to your school's sign-in page. So you can send them that link, put it on your classroom website, however you would like to deliver that information. This would be the unique school URL. You can get to Young Student Sign-In two different ways, either at the bottom of this page, click Enable Young Student Sign-In. And again, we recommend that for kindergarten, first grade level students, just because they're clicking on names and pictures rather than typing in their unique login information. But you can also get to that under Manage Roster and then clicking on Manage Young Student Sign-In. If you ever need to, again, see their username passwords, you can just click on the blue name. And then here is their username passwords. If you need to update their password, you can always change it here and then click Save and Close. So if you need to reset a password or look it up, you can do that on this page. I saw a couple messages pop through. Perfect. Yes, you can definitely bookmark anything in Moby where you see this, and then we'll bookmark it under this tab. All right, just to go back, make sure I'm going over all the points. So we looked at resetting learners' passwords for existing learners, setting up young student sign-in, again, for accounts that are already there, but also registering students you have the ability to do as a teacher. So in order to do that, you would just click on the blue Register Students button. And then you would fill in their information. So their first name, last name, the grade level you would like them to start at. And again, when they click on modules like science and social studies, they will start at the beginning of that curriculum. So if they're assigned as a third grader, they'll start at the beginning of their third grade curriculum and work their way through. If they are assigned as a third grader, they will start with an easy second grade question on the placement tests. So that's kind of where that grade level comes into play. So you know your students best. You can assign them a grade level. You will give them a username, password, and a student ID. And then once you're done registering your students, you will click Finish. You can also import from a spreadsheet. So if you click Would you rather import students, it will allow you to download a spreadsheet, enter in that information there, and then import it. I like to do it just on this screen because I can just type in the boxes, but it's really your preference. Either way, though, I'll go back over where to find that. From your teacher homepage, we would click on Tools, Student Roster, and then register students in this upper right-hand corner blue button. And then your students will be registered and all ready to go. The other thing I wanted to point out under manage roster, there are a few different ways you can manage your roster. We can create a group, a shared class, we can transfer or share students. So I'm just going to go over the difference between some of these different options. Create or editing a group is just for your specific class, your specific roster. No one else will see this group. Students will not see the group that they are in. It's just a way for you to organize the students on your roster and their data. Or when you're assigning something, you can assign it to a specific group. So it's a great way for you to organize your information. A shared class is if you want to share a specific group with multiple teachers and have that kind of be updated automatically. Then you can create a shared class and share that between multiple teachers, where then each teacher will see that information. When you share students, you can share students from your roster to another person's roster, and then that student's account will show up on both of your rosters. Whereas if you transfer them, you are just moving that student's account from your roster to another teacher's. So essentially, it's a lot of different ways to share and organize the information. If you have questions though, please feel free to reach out to us. If you are thinking of doing one thing and you just want to ask like, "Hey, this is my intention. Should I create a group or a shared class? Or is it better to share a student or transfer a student?" We are always happy to help answer those questions. I would say creating a group is something that everyone should do just because, again, it's a great way to organize your roster. But all you would click on is create or edit group. And then you can create a new group. Let's say it's the Monday math group. Click save. And then you would just select the students you want in that group. And then click save. Now, when we go back to the roster or anywhere throughout Moby, you see that drop down menu. You can select just that group and it will pull up just those students. Questions on the group? How are the teachers identified for transferring or sharing? So it'll just be their name. So when we go to manage roster and then you want to share a student, this will be what you see. And if you want to, let's say, share this student, you would select the school that that teacher is in, select their name, and then click share students. So I won't do that now just because we don't want that to go onto anyone else's roster, but this is what you are able to see from your account, all of the teachers' names. Good question. All right, so we talked about the account features and kind of a tour of each tab, and I'm happy to go back over those later during the question and answer if you want to dive into any of those a little further. Where to find the standards and curriculum, again, those are changing to Common Core on August 1st. How to register those students with that blue button, how to find and reset those passwords, set up young student sign-in, go over sharing students, and then those groups and shared classes. All of that can be done under, again, the Tools tab, under Manage, Student Roster, and then these three tabs will bring you to where you need to be, whether that's the URL, the different ways to manage your roster, or just finding your student data. So a student account, if you have already seen a student account, that's great. We're just kind of going to breeze through some of these different features. And if you have questions about it, let me know. But it starts out with the daily challenge. And I'm just going over to the different tabs at the top. Once you click on the library icon, they'll see all of the different modules they can work on. If teachers have assigned a daily time, that will show up here. Right now it says 0 minutes. But if you select 10 or 15 or whatnot, it'll show up that way. And students will just click on a module and then they'll get started. They do start with an automatic placement test in math, language, and foundational reading, and those can be reassigned throughout the year. Subjects like social studies, science, they'll just start at their grade level. And then subjects like numbers, alphabet letters, those are just sort of those foundational skills, those A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. So it's not necessarily grade level specific or a placement test, relying on that. It's just the start of that curriculum. So Just a few different ways if students get started, but again, they won't see that. It's just sort of for your background knowledge. Moving on over, if you do decide to assign either a skill or an assessment outside of Moby's automatic curriculum, it will appear here under assignments. And then we have some different interactive features, so like games, contests, badges, certificates. We have our announcements and tasks. And lastly, the Moby Friend. Students can earn time to create this little Moby Friend as they work through Moby. So that's what the student account looks like. Any questions on that? Okay, if you do, just let me know. So how do student licenses work? Currently, all of your students and teachers have access to MobyMax. On July 5th, that will be changing over to a student license model. So we're just going to kind of briefly talk about what that means. When a student has a license attached to their account, they will have all of the license features. So those are placement tests and progress monitoring and interactive lessons, whiteboard activities, games and contests, and badges. So all of that comes with the license. You can still have students on your roster that don't have a license assigned because those licenses are fluid. So you can assign, unassign, reassign anytime throughout the year. So essentially, the license is like a key to unlocking their data, being able to assign them different skills and assessments. All of that you can do once a license is assigned to their account, which we'll talk about how to do in just a minute. And then the timeline of that, a student license is purchased, the license is assigned to the account. Teachers can assign skills and assessments to licensed students, and then you can access data for those licensed students as well. And then at any time, you can also switch licenses if you would like a different set of students to have access to that data. So how do we assign these licenses? You can begin assigning the licenses at any time after you get the green light from your admin. So they will email you once the window opens. Once you have been given access to be able to assign licenses, they will email you and then you can begin assigning those licenses. Your current students all have a license right now with how it's set up. When it switches to per seat, only the students with licenses will have data that you can access. I will say this again 2 other times, but I recommend downloading and saving any reports you need to keep for your students prior to July 4th for those that will no longer have a license. So again, all the students on your roster right now have access to MobyMax. You have access to all of their data. I would recommend before that license switches over. The start of that is July 5th. So by the end of the day on July 4th, I would recommend saving any data that you would like just so that it is yours to keep on record for those students because the data will be switching after July 5th because of who's assigned a license. Again, I'll go over that a little bit more in detail later on, but just kind of a heads up. So how do we assign a license? We'll kind of look at teacher versus admin or admin versus teacher accounts. You can assign by teacher name or from a file. I'll show you how to reassign a license during the year. And then if you have any questions after that, I'm happy to answer those. So in your teacher account, when you go to tools, and then we're going to go back to student roster, we're going to click on manage roster. And then under licenses, once you have that permission granted to your account, you can click on allocate licenses to students. That will bring you to this screen. You will see how many licenses have been assigned, how many are unassigned, when they are good through or active, and then you have some different buttons at the top. So you would click on the license that we want to assign. So there's only one on there, one type. You would click assign, and then that gives you access to all of the information. So what I would recommend is finding your class. So you would find your school, find the teacher. So I'm going to go to Elizabeth's, scroll down a little bit. going to take a second because there are so many students. All right, so now with Elizabeth's roster here, I can either assign to all students on the roster, and it will tell me how many that is, 21, or I will select specific students. So if I have 8 licenses assigned to my class, I will just select 8 of my students. Once I have selected their names, I will click Assign License. Again, I'm not going to do that now, but once you've selected the names, you click Assign, and then this assigned number will go up by however many you just assigned. If you would like to assign from a file, you can click that license, click Assign from File, and it will have you download a template, which is just a spreadsheet. You will input your students' ID numbers that are on your roster, and it will automatically assign licenses to those students. So I'm going to pause because I see there are a couple different bubbles. How are the teachers identified? Oh, we talked about that. Downloading the users report. Yes, and we will go over how to do that. Randomly assigned to current students. Yes, you will choose those learners. So all students will be able to use MobyMax through July 4th, and then once July 5th comes up, then students with the licenses, you'll be able to access all of their data after that time. It is being recorded. Good question. So once more, how we get to the assign license window, we go to Tools. Under Manage, we click Student Roster, Manage Roster, and then Allocate Licenses to Students. And again, if you need any help, your Moby success experts are here to help you. So please feel free to email us, call us, and we will help assign licenses or register students or whatever you need help with. Okay, this is the first time we'll see this and we'll see it again later in the presentation. The important deadlines. Your current license, as is, ends on July 4th. So we will talk about data, where you find that, how you can download it. But please download data for all your students before then. For any student that you would like to have data for, please do that please do that before July 4th or by end of the day on July 4th. New student licenses begin on July 5th. So licenses will then need to be assigned to student accounts by the teacher in order for you to access their data. You can begin doing that anytime your admin gives you the green light to do so. Next, we have the end of July. So your students will get licenses assigned. They'll be able to work on the Minnesota state standards. They're going to be continuing to use their MobyMax accounts. They'll just have licenses assigned. By the end of July, July 30th, make sure you download the next set of data for those July weeks because Moby will be down on July 31st for our archive. What happens during archive is all previous data gets archived. We start over on on August 1st with fresh data. Your program specifically will really start with fresh data because you are switching standards. So you're going from the Minnesota state standards to Common Core. So you want to make sure that all of your previous data that you want to save and have access to is downloaded for all of your students prior to July 4th, because you still have access to all of your students' data. Then by the end of July, July 30th, you want to make sure that all of your licensed students' data is downloaded. And then everything is sort of starting fresh on August 1st. So you will have new standards on August 1st that align with your program, the Common Core. Students will be starting with fresh placement tests. Their licenses should remain assigned, so you don't have to worry about reassigning them at that point. They should still remain assigned. But again, the standards are switching because of what your program uses, and since those are being updated, the data will start fresh on August 1st. So question about the deadline. Current accounts be deleted. They will not be deleted. They should just have a seamless transition where just the standards will change. They will lose their current progress. So since the standards are changing, they're going to be different. So it's kind of like apples and oranges. So their current progress and placement tests and all of that. That's why I recommend downloading that data prior to, July 4th for everybody, and then for the students working in July prior to July 30th. That way you have that record and all of that information because that data will be archived and started fresh on August 1st. If I missed any questions, please let me know. I was trying to read through all of them, but I may have missed one in the thread. So now we will take a look at data and reports and how to download that information, what that looks like, where to find it. So the student summary report. That shows the time on task, the modules the students worked in, the total time, and you can access scores on that page. So from your teacher account, you can get there one of two ways. We can click on the Tools tab and then scroll down on the left-hand side and click on Student Summary. My favorite way is just right from the home page. It's under the Quick Access section, and it's under Cross-Curricular Reporting. So I'm going to click on Student Summary right here, and it brings you to that same page. So again, you'll want to do this for all your students for all of the weeks that you need data for prior to July 4th or by the end of the day on July 4th. And then again, for your licensed students in July, you'll want to do that prior to July 30th or by the end of the day on July 30th. But you will have all of your students right here. We'll have the total time, and you can filter or sort. If you click on it, it will go to ascending or descending order. We have an overview, we have a snapshot, the student usage, day-to-day, and a module summary. So if you need a day-to-day timestamp, you can always go to the day-to-day, but otherwise we're going to go to the student usage report. So it's under student summary, we're on the student usage tab, and then you will select the date range. So I know you guys monitor by week, so you would select the week that you would like data for, apply, and then for this week, these are the total times. And again, since this is sort of the demo accounts, you won't see a lot of times right here. There's going to be dashes, but it will show the total time for each student for that week. You will also see the on task time, how many, what they're getting correct, if they worked at school hours or home hours, how much they have done. So again, going back to the current school year, you'll kind of just see, again, this is what the data will look like, but it will just be for those specific weeks. And again, you can sort it or filter by the time. So this is with hours and minutes, so 3 hours, 46 minutes. And then anywhere in Moby where you see the print page, you can click it, and then it will either download as a PDF or you can download it as an Excel file, the CSV. And then you can print that out or just save it as a PDF if you save things electronically. But it will show the date range. So right now it's at current year, but if you do week by week, it'll show that week date or those dates of the week, the total usage, and then on task percentage, how many they got correct, how many problems, and then the school and home breakdown. If you would like to expand this further, you can also do it according to modules. And if you press on this button, it will expand all of those names. So it will break it down then by subject, and you can also print that, and it will print all of that as well. If you are an administrator watching this, so that is how teachers, you can get your individual roster data. But if you are a school or district level administrator, you can do the same thing for student summary. And I don't want to click that right now because I know with the privacy, I don't want to show all of that information. But if you click on student summary under reporting, you can do that same thing and just change the date range to a specific week. And then you can get the data for an entire school, the entire district, and you'll just have to change each week the dates for that. But if you have an administrator account, you can do that on this side of it. Under reporting, click on student summary. All of the teachers, when you have your teacher accounts, from the home page, you click on student summary under cross-curricular reporting, go to student usage, and change this to a specific week. And I know you guys have been running reports all year, so you might have already been collecting data this way, but for that last month of June, if you want to save those last few weeks, just make sure you're selecting those dates. It's one by one each week, and then you can print out that PDF for all of the students on your roster. Questions? Correct. The school versus home time. So probably just using the total time. Under settings, it shows like the school time and home time, and that's just why it differentiates. So you can always change that if you'd like. Otherwise, just look at the total time. All right. So since most of you have teacher accounts, again, you're going to be doing it this way. Just going to the home tab, clicking on student summary, clicking student usage, and then selecting which week you would like data for. And then you can select the print icon. Any questions before we move on from the student summary report, which will be probably, the most in-depth report for you to get that time data that you need. Perfect. All right. Moving on, we do have some other data that while your students are working in Moby, you can access just to kind of check in on their progress. We have placement tests and progress monitoring data. So again, I know most of you have used MobyMax, so you're probably familiar with this. I'm just going to quickly kind of go over where you can find that and how to look at some of those reports. But when we go to curriculum, and then you can click on a subject or filter on the left-hand side. So if I want to go to placement tests, I can click on math. I can go to, it already brings me to the scores. So if I click on a score, which again, this is the demo data, so it looks like there are no scores right now, but you would just click on the status of the test. It would pull up that last test result right here. So if anything blue in Moby is clickable, you would click on that and get all of the data. It looks very similar to one right under it, which is the progress monitoring report. And this is all of the data housed in one spot for all of the practice that the students are working on, whether that's automatically assigned lessons or whether that's things that you're manually assigning them. All of that data gets collected onto this report. And then when you click on a student's name, it will show you the breakdown of each grade, each domain, what their beginning proficiency was, their ending or their proficiency to date, and then if there's been an increase or decrease. So again, your standards are switching on August 1st. This will say the Common Core standards. It will be listed in a different state, again, just to kind of make it all work together so that you guys are getting the correct standard. So you might see a state that is not your own, but don't worry, it is Common Core, so everything should be all set up that way. You can also take a look at monthly and weekly progress here. It won't say the time spent, but it will say the progress score. So once your students are working, it will say the student's name up at the top and it will say like a 3.4, 3.6 as they're gaining proficiency in those standards. So these are two reports I'd recommend taking a look at throughout the year: placement tests, progress monitoring, and then again, especially for the total time, that student summary. And I saw a bubble. Let's see. After assigning license to a previous registered student, will they have access? Yes. So again, just to reiterate, all of the data is going to be starting fresh on August 1st. So anything that you want to save before that for your July licensed students, save before July 30th or by the end of the day on July 30th. Anybody, just your whole roster, if you want to save their data prior for the month of July, do that by, um, or not July, I'm sorry, June. Do that by end of the day on July 4th before the new licenses take effect. Charts and graphs and custom reports is one other way. And again, you can do that from your home page. Charts and graphs is a great visual way of looking at the data. So you can see under your classroom the total usage. You can see specific usage for a week. Now, again, because this is the demo data, there isn't there, but usually there's a graph right here. And if you click on it, you can see each individual student name. It's just not very printer friendly. So I would still recommend using that student summary. But there are lots of different graphs here that you can explore when you have the time, and you can also narrow it down by subject and by individual student. Similarly, we have custom reports, so you can download different data this way as well. You can create a new report, click on that blue button, click on teacher, select your name, and then you can run a report on usage, progress, and proficiency, or some of those different tests. What's nice about this is usually we'll let you download it as a PDF or an Excel file, and it is a little bit more detailed. However, some teachers just prefer charts and graphs because it's nice. It's visually laid out. So those are two other ways of accessing data. I would say for now, focus again on that total time because that's what you guys are mainly focused on, especially, switching over with the licenses. But if you ever need additional training, just let us know on some of those reports because those are great to kind of dive into as your students start working. So before we go to Q&A, I know I've gone over a lot of data today, but I want to reiterate that timeline once again. So the current license ends on July 4th. So please download all of your data for students before then, any data that you would like. So again, you would go into your account, click on student summary from your homepage, click on student usage, and then you would select, whichever weeks you would like data for in June or any other weeks. Click apply, and then you have the totals. So again, these are demos, but you'll have all of the information there. You can click print, and then it will show that week and the dates, all of your students and the total time, how many were on task, things like that. So do that prior to July 4th or by the end of the day on the July 4th for all of your students. Once July 5th comes, you will have licenses assigned to your students that you are assigning through your account. And then all of the information that I just showed you, you'll be able to access for those licensed students. So again, if students are working during the month of July, you can, by July 30th, which is our third date, download their data so that you can save that before the archive. And then on August 1st, the standards, or I should say July 31st, Moby will be down because the archive will be starting. All of that previous information will be started fresh. You'll start with new standards, new placement tests, fresh progress monitoring, and then you will be on to the next chapter with your Common Core standards. And I know I went over a lot of information. That is my direct phone number and email. Again, you can also reach out to Stacy Bradley. She will be back in town. Um, she's coming back not next Monday, but the weekend after. So reach out to one of us. And do you have any questions on what I went over? Do you want me to go over any of the processes again? I'm happy to do that. Or if you have any other clarifying questions, please let me know. Yes, thank you for clarifying, Elizabeth. It depends on who's getting a license. Will our school code change? That is a great question. I don't think it will, based on my conversation with the developers today. I believe since we are doing it on August 1st, everything should be seamless and just the standards will change. If that does change, it will just be again under tools, student roster, hire student sign in. It'll just be a different URL, but I believe it's going to stay the same. We
I
will
have
know
a
closer to
question.
that time. Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. So our username and passwords will stay the same as well?
Yeah, for your teacher and student
Mhm.
accounts, those will all be the same.
Okay. Can we still share one unique license with many teachers? Like I'm a reading teacher and an ESL teacher, math teacher, science teacher. We can share that one license with many teachers in the same
So the
school?
licenses are assigned to student accounts. So if you share student A with the science teacher, with the reading teacher, with the math teacher, you will all have access to the data for student A.
And it's
So
just
it's
one unique account, right? We don't need four accounts if they're in four different classes.
correct. So that student has one account they sign into. They have all of the modules on their account. They will select any that they want to start working on. And then whoever they have as a teacher, if they are shared with those teachers, all of their teachers will be able to see their information and their data as long as a license is assigned to them.
Okay. I am
Yeah.
being assigned 240 licenses for my school. Would
Mhm.
it be easier just to cut? Because my list is way more than 240. Should I cut it down to 240 now? So when July 5th comes, it's easy just to take that roster and then just apply those and assign all those licenses to those 240 or less students. Should I do it now as soon as possible?
Well, when you say cut students, do you mean delete students off your roster that are
Right
currently there?
now, I have so many because when a student comes, they automatically get placed by the secretary
Mhm.
into a MobyMax account. So we have many hundreds, and of course, people come and go. And a few times a year, I always clean it out. But right now, we have way more than 240 on there. And I'm
Sure.
just wondering, would it be easier to do it now? So when July 5th comes in a couple weeks, then I can just, boom, I got these 240 students, and I'm going to change them 240 or less to the new license.
Yeah, so you can go through your roster and select all the students you want to delete. The only caution I would put out there is just under this column of shared with, if a
Mhm.
student is not shared with anybody else, then their account gets deleted. It can always be reinstated. So under manage roster, we have a restore deleted students option. So if you accidentally do, that's okay. We can restore their account. But just kind of beware if a student is not shared with any other teacher, if you do delete it, their account will be deleted
Mhm.
entirely. But again, they can be restored, so it's not the end of the world.
So if the progress and placement tests are being deleted here now, um,
Mhm.
and a student comes back with adults, that happens all the time, and they want to
Sure.
be placed back, let's say in foundational reading, they had a certain score, then I'd take my PDF that I saved from the past, and then will there be a different process of putting them back on foundational reading at this level? Or it'll
Yeah,
be
so
the
on August 1st, everybody starts fresh. So if they come back over the summer and say, I want to pick back up where I started,
Mhm.
you can restore their account if it was deleted. If they then get a license assigned to their account, they should be able to continue. But then again, after August 1st, everybody's starting over. That's a great thing to mention, though, and I apologize for not saying that. If you want to print their progress monitoring reports or their placement test reports, do that under scores. And then placement test, since I don't have any on this screen, I can't show you, but you would click on the score, the test score, open it up. It would look very similar to the progress monitoring report. And then you can expand everything so that you see all of the different standards, and then you can print it. You can also bulk print. So anytime too you have a question, if you're like, oh, I need this or printing progress monitoring reports, you can always type it in here too. And then print, and of course it's not gonna work. But you can type in keywords. You can print them all at once, or you can print individual students and do that way from custom. So
Okay.
if you want to do any of that too, do that prior to those dates. Great question, and I'm glad you brought that up.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Let's see. Recording will be shared on August 1st. So this archive will begin July 31st, and then August 1st, everyone does start over. In order for other staff to get the ability to assign licenses. Elizabeth answered that one. Yeah. Yeah, every year we do have that archive. This year is just especially important or different because you guys are getting access to the correct standards for your program. So that'll be good. And it is being recorded. I know Elizabeth said she's going to share that out. So you guys can rewatch it. And again, my contact information's on there. You can reach out to me or Stacy or our support team. If you click on the help tab, whichever you feel most comfortable with, you can contact support, send us ideas, all of that. Or again, if you want help registering students or assigning your licenses, we're happy to help with that as well. Just be aware that MobyMax is not in the office on July 4th. So if you do want to ask any questions, I'd recommend doing that by July 3rd, just so you can get a timely response. But other than that, should be good to go. I saw two more questions. Maybe not. If I missed any questions, just shout them out. I don't want to miss any of those. Will teachers need to still request accounts through the state by filing out the Google Doc? I think perfect. And again, I'm just going to show how to do this because downloading your data for total time is going to be the most important coming up. Just on your homepage, go to cross-curricular reporting on this quick access section, click on student summary, click on student usage, and then select the date range you want, and then you can print with the print icon. Other than that, just assigning licenses come July 5th, and then we are here to help with anything and everything that come up with MobyMax. After July 5th, for students that are registered but not assigned a license, are we able to see if they've logged in and done any work? So you will not have access to that same data. I apologize. I don't know if you'll be able to see if they logged in. I think you can still see when they last signed in, but they will still be able to use their student accounts. You will just not have access to the same data, and you can't assign anything new to them, like skills, assessments, things like that. So they're still able to log into their account, click on some different modules, but the data won't, you won't have access to that. Any other questions?
Can you clarify that about, so if we don't, if we're not sure someone's going to work on it, or if we don't necessarily, if we, or we want them to contact us if they're going to start working on it again, then should we not just not give them assignment, we should actually delete them or close down their account? Because if we don't assign them a license, we don't really want them working on it.
Yeah, that would kind of be up to you guys. If you want to keep their accounts in case you switch around licenses or if they come back, but you can definitely delete them as well, and then we can
And if they try to log in, they won't be able to. They'd have to come back and
yeah, I would say like an account not found.
reorient them. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
seems like since we have to collect proxy hours, that there's no benefit to us having them registered without having a license.
Yeah, I would just make sure, again, before those deadlines, just any data you want, definitely download it, make sure it's all there, whether that's the total hours or, progress monitoring or placement test. But outside of that, it's kind of your discretion if you want to delete students that are no longer in the program. So you can just focus on the ones that are, but I'll kind of defer to Elizabeth and Katie and on that one just because I don't want to give the wrong answer with how the program works.
No, I would agree. That'll just be a program level decision. It kind of depends on how many licenses have been allocated to your program and whether you expect learners to return after stopping out. You'll do what makes sense for your context.
Yeah, sorry, I guess I assumed if you didn't assign them a license, they wouldn't have access to MobyMax anymore. But they'll, from their point of view, they can do everything the same if we don't give them a license. It's just that we can't see their data.
They don't have some of the things like the engagement pieces and things like that, but they can still access a lot of the modules. But again, just like the progress monitoring will be a little bit different and what you can see on your end. So then if you do decide to assign a license to them or, get another license and put it on their account later, then you can access their previous information and kind of see what they've been working on. But the license, just think of it as like the key for the teacher, like to see all of the data, see the progress, things like that.
Okay.
But the student, when they sign in, like their account won't look any different.
Okay. Thanks.
Aaron, a
Yeah.
question. If I delete a learner from my roster who had a license assigned, is that
Mhm.
license automatically available then to another learner, or do I need to unassign the license first and then delete them from my roster?
When you delete them, the license should go back into the
Okay.
count of unassigned. Sometimes that could, if it sticks or whatever, just let us know. But usually just when they're deleted, the license will go back.
Another question. So if we're running reports for student usage or student time,
Mhm.
um, basically we should not remove any license from students before we run those reports, right? Because we're going to lose all that data.
Correct. So definitely, again, by the end of July 4th, all of your students right now, you have access to all of their data. So now would be like the best time to start downloading and saving that data. And again, it's a pretty quick, you just go to student summary, change the dates. But then after July 5th, you'll be able to just download the data from licensed students.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of like in terms of my monthly reporting. So in the future, I download a report at the end of every month.
Mhm.
So I probably shouldn't be removing licenses before the end of the month, every month.
Yeah, and generally, um, and again, I apologize, I don't know kind of the fluidity of when students are coming and going, but the students will most likely have the licenses for a longer period of time. So I wouldn't be like unassigning, reassigning each month unless that's how it's working. But if you kind of have the same student roster, the licenses would just remain on their account for the year. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're pretty fluid with our enrollments. So we
Okay.
do have students coming and going every month. Yeah,
Sure. So then, yeah, if you still want to get that data at the end of the month, then I would just leave the license on there so that you still have access to it.
sure. Okay.
All right. Well, we are at the time, but again, my contact information is right there. So if you guys do have any further questions, please let me know. I'm happy to help really with anything. So reach out with all your questions and we can help you through the process or, along any of those steps that you need help with. And then Elizabeth, do you have any last directions for them or kind of what
Um,
next steps are?
Yeah, so next steps, I'm going to, in just a second, put a link to an evaluation in the chat. I'll also email it out to you if you had to leave, for people who had to leave early. But for those of you who attended today, please complete the evaluation. Once you've done that, Katie and I will check, make sure everything is good to go, and switch on your ability to assign licenses in MobyMax. And then we will email you when we've done that, so you'll know. And then you can start assigning licenses as soon as you get that email from us. And there
Awesome.
will also be a follow-up email with the recording link and the handout that I shared earlier and the evaluation and everything. Don't worry, we'll follow up and send you more stuff.
Well, you
What's the
guys have been a
process?
wonderful.
Oh,
Oh, go
sorry.
ahead.
What's the
Sorry.
process for people that administrators that couldn't come today? They watched the video. You said they have to do a quiz and then
Sure thing.
they get
Yep,
the
that'll
access.
be sent out, maybe not today and then tomorrow's a holiday, but by Friday or Monday at the latest, we'll get you that recording and that link to the other form for the
And then
quiz.
they can get their administrator license as soon as they get that quiz.
Yep, exactly.
You guys
Thank
have
you
been a
so much,
wonderful
Erin.
group. Thank you. I really enjoyed meeting with everybody, and please reach out anytime. We're here to help.